Radio, a love story. My name is Stan Hall, and I am a radio addict. I don't own an iPod or a smartphone. I own a handheld AM/FM pocket radio. Perhaps I was born in the wrong generation. Perhaps I would have been happier in the 1950s, where I would be spinning records and living off a cot in the studio. But I digress. Like most addicts, I can pinpoint my addiction's inception. I know that first hit. I was 8 years old, and I used to religiously listen to a DJ by the name of Al Michaels on an oldie station. When I heard this man announce the last Cherelle song or give the weather for the day, I pictured a tall Fonzie-esque character who drove around on a motorcycle and wore a leather jacket and gave everybody a high five as he went around. I had a chance to meet the DJ at a local AAA ball game. It was like meeting God. Upon meeting him, though, I was crushed and simultaneously inspired. Al Michaels was a short, stocky, mustachioed Hawaiian shirt adorning pathetic excuse for a Fonzie. That same moment, on my heart's ashes, came an ember of hope. I knew that if this deplorable man could lie to me, hell, I could lie to anybody if I worked on my voice and had a microphone. This summer I got a job as a morning jock at a commercial radio station. I had the pleasure of being the voice for all the 40-something single mothers trying to regain their youth with Cyndi Lauper. Don't believe me?
It's Stan Hall with feel-good favorites from the 80s and more.
The new Rewind 92, 5 and 104.1.
From 6 to 10 a.m., I was that guy. You know, the overly enthusiastic man who, for whatever reason, is excruciatingly happy. Please, allow me to demonstrate. The new Rewind 92.5 and 104.1 feel-good favorites from the 80s and more. That was Madonna. Up next, we got, some Paul Simon. We're looking at 75 in Prescott, 61 in Flag, slight chance of showers. Hope you guys all have a beautiful Monday. I know I am. Contrary to my cynical tone, the job had many perks, and I loved it. I was finally lying to people like I wanted to. Unfortunately, when I submitted my school schedule, suddenly I wasn't reliable enough to keep on, and the management wanted to go a different route with their morning show. Someone who actually lived through the 80s. Go figure. See, I would love nothing more than to be a Howard Stern or an Ira Glass or the Car Talk Brothers. You know, have my own show. However, I got this gut feeling swaying me the other way. With a modern generation that listens less and less to radio, where does the medium stand? In a recent poll I conducted at a 100-person electronic media and film intro class at NAU, I asked, who here listens to radio? I had an appalling 9 people raise their hands. Of 18 and 19-year-olds who are studying electronic media, only 9% listen to this dinosaur of a medium. Perhaps their listening habits will change later in life. However, one thing I learned this summer of working 2 jobs in radio was radio is first and foremost a business. The art form comes second. What kind of business model thrives on an aging listenership basis and an exponentially decreasing new customer base? However, this is not to say commercial radio is faring poorly. For now, at least, they seem quite comfortable. They've managed to make themselves astoundingly efficient and trim. When once in the days of yore, you would have had a few guys on air spinning tracks all day and overnight, perhaps one guy running the broadcast tower, one guy making commercials, one guy programming and adding music, and probably an intern getting donuts. Now, all of those jobs are combined to about 3 people, who all get paid for one job's work. Pair that with corporations like Clear Channel buying up airspace all over the country, and programming, both music and talk shows, being sold as syndicated material, and you get yourself a very small and streamlined radio industry. Perhaps the future is in public radio. NPR, the Alamo of radio's battle to stay relevant in the digital age. NPR is recognizing this shift and producing original content that is unavailable anywhere else. Shows that just don't have political pundits blabbering their bird-brained opinions or playing that same Boston song you've heard every day of your life since 1979, but rather human stories and humble DJs. The downside to NPR's newly founded popularity is that it's turning into more of a corporation. Local affiliates are slowly losing what little input into programming they once had. NPR dictates programming out of Washington, and local affiliates download the shows and put them on the air. I know. I was the weekend engineer at Flagstaff's affiliate KNAU, and this was my job. My opinions are clearly biased, so I ask you, are we witnessing the end of radio? Do you find radio as big a part of your life as it was, say, 10 years ago? Do you see a future for the medium? Meet Jordan.
Hi, my name's Jordan Glaza, and I'm the program director here at Greenwich Broadcasting in the Flagstaff, Prescott, Arizona market.
Jordan and I worked together this summer at that 80s station I told you about. He has some pretty interesting opinions on the future of radio.
Where do I see the medium's future? Where do I see radio going? I see radio doing two things in the future. The first one would be what we already see in the industry. We see a push for more profit, more monopolizing of signals, more monopolizing of corporation businesses buying up as much as they can, and therefore, in seeking out money, doing more with less. The second future I see in radio, if you've been in the industry for any length of time, eventually you'll hear someone preach local, local, local. And I see a push towards more locality. I love the fact that I can talk to someone about, hey, it's hailing outside right now, and they will look outside and go, damn, I'm not going out there. I see a push back to get much more emotionally and intellectually involved with the local listener's life.
However, let's define this in terms of my generation. After all, I can only really speak to their thoughts. Millennials, the first group to be raised on the internet. The first group to figure out a way of downloading whatever they want, whenever they want, and all for free. My generation is completely proliferated with content, both audio and otherwise. And as much as young people hate to admit it, one day we will get old and inherit the economy. How are we expected to retrograde to allow radio to vie for our short and diverse attention spans?
I do not listen to the radio. Occasionally with other people in the car, but not by choice.
That's Alex Castillo, 22 years old.
So you only listen to the radio in the car?
Yes.
What other forms of audio entertainment do you listen to?
I usually listen to podcasts. That's how I get a lot of my news.
Then I asked Alex about his music listening habits. Radio used to be the place where you got all your music, and it wasn't that long ago that you had to wait tirelessly by a radio speaker to hear your favorite new song that was released.
I usually listen to music through my phone, just transferring it from a computer, and then I get my stuff off of iTunes. I'll just buy it off there
So, iTunes has the market cornered on podcasts and music. But what about people who are true music purists and also thrifty? Are they listening to radio, which is a free medium? Meet Zizi.
Zizi Haggerty.
I asked Zizi about her terrestrial radio listening habits.
Mostly as a novelty to see how ridiculous top 40 hits have been getting, but not seriously. For the most part, I find DJs a little bit obnoxious and insincere, so I would rather self-program when I listen to music.
Those two words,
self-program,
just might be the end of the current radio format as we know it. So, what exactly is self-programming?
How do you listen to music?
I use Spotify online because it's free.
Spotify is a free software that allows users to socially build playlists from Spotify's vast audio library. Boasting some 17.4 million users worldwide, they appear to be quite a contender. If at some point a user gets tired of their playlist or the playlist of their friends, they can have the program tailor songs and program to them based on a genre or artist, not unlike Pandora.
Well, Spotify, I'm in control of what I listen to and at what time I listen to it, and they have a really good selection of more obscure music that you really won't find on the radio, and I love that it's free.
My name is Zachary Watson, and I'm 21. Spotify radio, I like because if I want, whenever I actually like a song, I can just start and immediately goes into my library for later. So all of my music comes from Spotify. It just streams directly from Spotify. I don't think I've downloaded or purchased anything in years.
Think about this question while Zach does too. What was the last album that you remember buying?
I think that's a hard one. I think it might have been a Modest Mouse album. We Were Dead Before the Ship Sank.
That album was released back in 2007. So, let's recap. Radio, as we know it, seems to be losing its grasp on the younger generation, and their definition of radio tends to be different from that of the industry standard. That definition encompassing a terrestrial signal which is controlled by a company and broadcasts out to its constituents, a predetermined schedule of audio with advertisements or underwritten spots sold to keep the station running. This has been how the industry has made money since the 30s, and the problem seems to be in its adaptation into the 21st century. This year I went to the National Association of Broadcasters convention in Las Vegas. I sat in on a number of panels exploring just this very topic. I heard it all. Please allow me to paraphrase and excuse the radio voice antics. Commercial radio is doing just fine. No, public radio is the answer. Yeah, well, what happens when people stop paying the station during pledge drives and just pay NPR itself? No one could ever live without radio. Finally, I sat in on a panel titled Radio's Fight to Stay Relevant. It was an epiphany that allowed me to synthesize my thoughts into words, all in the form of a simple analogy. See, radio is in the same boat as the railroad industry was back in the 20s. The old railroad companies thought they were in the train and track business. And to an extent they were. That is, until they found out that they were in the transportation industry. Now, passenger trains don't function nearly as efficiently in the cross-country capacity as they once did. Sure, trains still service cities like subways and light rails, but as the cross-country giant they used to be, trains have become almost an homage to the past. Now, radio thought it was in the radio industry. Turns out it's in the media industry, and is becoming a smaller and smaller fish in a sea of media sharks. I came to these conclusions by sitting in on panels and interviewing countless people involved in the industry. Most of them had somewhat similar things to say, as I paraphrased earlier, but one man had some pretty interesting ideas that stuck with me.
I'm faculty advisor for KSFS at San Francisco State University.
And can you state your name real quick?
Jeff Jacoby.
Where do you see the future of radio, and how will it build relevance in society?
Big question. I think that you would be better equipped to answer what the future of radio is than I am. I'm an old radio dinosaur at this point, but I have some opinions about it for what they're worth. I think that radio offers a series of advantages that no other media offers. First and foremost, radio is the medium of audio. And audio by itself, specifically, even aggressively, anti-picture, does things to the human psyche, and even, in fact, the human body, that visuals do not do. Audio literally enters your body through your ears and rattles around inside your body. I also think, at least I have a theory, that audio impacts a part of the brain that, intriguingly enough, smell does. You ever walked into a room and smelled something and gotten a nostalgic rush, either from your childhood or last year or something? I think sound does that. I don't think visuals do that.
I agree.
So I think audio stimulates, and this is the point, I think audio stimulates a part of the brain and a part of human emotion that nothing else does.
What Jeff is talking about here, I believe, explains, in part, my love of radio. But I'm not the only one who has this odd attachment to the theater of the mind. This is my dad.
My name is Frank Hall. I'm Stan's father. I guess I have to take credit for Stan. And I'm 55 years old.
He talked to me a little about radio's influence in his early years.
The influence was something you did. I remember some of my earliest memories when you asked me about all this was in September we used to have little transistor radios that were maybe about 4 inches by 4 inches by about an inch thick. And September was a big time for the World Series and stuff, and you'd bring, back then the headphones were just one ear. So you would run the earplug through your sleeve, and while you were in class, you would listen to the game, and you'd pretend like the teacher didn't really know what you were doing, because you could keep the small little transistor radio in your pocket. So the influence was pretty neat that way. I mean, it was just something that you grew up with, and it was a way you kept in contact with a lot of different things.
What my old man is talking about here doesn't seem that much different than what we used to do once we got our first iPods and MP3 players. Let's go back to Jeff.
What will change, and what is already changing, is that terrestrial radio, the idea of broadcasting radio over an antenna into a receiver, is gone. And radio will be delivered via the internet and received via the internet, and that's where radio will reside. That doesn't mean radio died. It just means it changed venues.
I've said that like a million times.
That's all.
That maniacal "I told you so" interjection is Sarah. She is a dear friend of mine and my assistant station manager at NAU's KJAC Radio.
My future in radio, I'm not necessarily too worried about. I have a lot of opportunities that have been offered to me so far, And as far as terrestrial radio goes, I think it's just going to change. It's going to morph. Even if that's just internet radio based completely, then so be it. But I don't think radio is just going to disappear, and I don't think a terrestrial signal for radio will disappear.
So I'm thinking the future is, if I were to guess, primarily internet radio. That's mainstream radio, is internet radio now. Terrestrial radio will exist, but it will become very small. And actually community radio will be terrestrial because it'll be very localized in a small geographic area. And that will be useful for terrestrial radio. But that's all it will do. And emergency broadcast system. Because when the internet goes down, you can still turn on your radio with batteries. So I think radio has a very bright, wonderful, interesting future. I just think it's shifting venues, that's all.
I would love nothing more than to give you a solid prediction right now in this piece. I'd love to be able to wrap up and definitively say, this is what's going to happen, but I can't. I can, however, point out high and low points, and after all, I did say this was a love story, didn't I? Radio taught me how to talk. Radio taught me everything from how to work on cars to managing a staff of 70 college kids. Radio taught me how much fun getting a group of your friends around a microphone could be. She's taught me a lot. Don't think I'm just going to cut her to the curb. I'll be involved in some form of station later on in life. Maybe I'll be tight on cash and have to go back to being that 80s guy. Or maybe I'll help out at my local NPR affiliate. Or even host a community radio show where I talk about different whittling techniques. All I know is to be open for change in this industry. And remember what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men. So, in the immortal words of the late and great Paul Harvey, and now, the rest of the story.